Hi, I'm Dave Wurzel, and you're watching PHTV4, and you are?
I'm Adam Nelson.
I am. It's good to be back with you.
Yeah.
We're doing Palos stories then and now. And today we're going to take a look at the beginnings of the Palos Heights Fire Department.
Dave, I hate to burst your bubble, but this is the regional. The fire department's across the street right there.
We can see it.
Yeah.
It's not there. Excellent point. And yet we are still standing at the location that will be the beginning of the fire department, going back to the late 30s. And that's the story we're going to tell today. So how did it go from
here to across
there?
the street?
Exactly. So let's go to the late 30s first. Late 30s, there's a fire, a tragic fire that takes place actually about a block from here that way.
That way?
That way. And a house catches on fire. The community doesn't have a fire department, and they have to call for help from Oak Lawn and Orland Park.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Late 30s, and the roads are not looking like they do now. Anyway, by the time the fire department from those areas get here, the area is crowded with traffic and people coming to check out the fire. They don't get through, the house gets destroyed.
Yeah.
So the community says, all right, we need to get our own equipment so we can manage this. And so at that point, Bartlett Realty Company, donates some space and some money to get that started.
What is Bartlett Realty?
Because you're wondering,
we're
still
standing at the regional. These names aren't adding up. Who is Bartlett, you know?
So, all right, maybe a future show?
Future show for Bartlett.
Bartlett Realty Company was, they were the realtor that subdivided these parts of Palos Heights into the subdivisions. They platted it out. They sold homes here. And what they did was they actually donated some land. So this building, which is the regional now, actually was Bartlett Realty Company at one point.
Yeah.
And they donated some land behind it to build a fire barn and a siren. You want to check that out?
We can check that out.
All right, let's check that out.
Check that out.
We're here with Chief Michael Daly. Mike, thank you for being here, Chief Daly.
It's our pleasure.
So working on the history of the Palos Heights Fire Department, the history it's got some pretty good stories in it, some tragic, but the evolution of it's rather amazing. And I'm going to lead you with the first question. We've got this fire hose between us.
Sure.
It's got the year 1939 painted on it. I'm assuming that's when the fire department started. Can you give us the background how it got going?
So the fire department started as a community venture. Concerned citizens established a fire district. And 1939 was when the charter was established to establish the Palos Heights Fire Protection District, which is a geographical construction of a fire district. It covers a certain amount of territory, and it was done by the community. They raised funds and they established the fire district, which wasn't uncommon at that time in Illinois.
Dave, shouldn't we be walking more that way to the actual fire department? Why are we here by the dumpsters and in the parking lot?
We walked the wrong way, right?
Yeah, the wrong way.
All right, another excellent question. Actually, the space behind us in that general area is where the first fire barn was built. So Bartlett Realty Company said, hey, he gave him some space on his property, said you can build a place to house, they get a fire truck, they get some equipment to put out fires. They're going to put a siren on top of Bartlett Realty. So, Chief Daly, you mentioned that this building was 1960.
Yes.
But the district was established in 1939, so there's a 21-year gap in there. And where were they operating out of in that time period?
So they across the street there was a real estate office, and on that property there was a equipment shed constructed by the volunteers. And I believe there's some photos that you'll have.
I know the photo. Now that you mention, I know the photo you're talking about. So Bartlett Realty, a realtor, offered them space on their property, which is not a realtor offer anymore. We're talking about the regional now, right? The regional newspaper.
I believe it was on that property behind the building.
Yeah, okay. So they built a barn there for their fire truck, I guess, right? And I know there's stories about that. It went through a rough period, but eventually they'll come over here. The question I have, as I'm thinking about this, we're dependent on volunteers. They really have just a barn to house their equipment, the first fire truck, which I think is 1939, right?
Right. We have a photo of that.
Let's check that out.
It was a car. It was basically an automobile retrofitted with fire pumps.
But how do you get the people here? I know in the display case we've got the, like a firebox. It looks a little bit more mechanical or definitely heavier than what you'd see in a public building or, something we see in the hallways and
Sure.
other places. In the community, if there's a fire in the community, how does the word go out then that we need the volunteers in?
Well, in the early days, before even the phone system was built out, they had a area where you came and broke the glass on a signaling device and it set the siren off. And the siren could be heard throughout the community. The volunteer firefighters, as I understand it, came to the station. And this was something in some departments that went on for years and years and years. And as I understand, later on, they had phones that would ring all of their numbers,
Okay.
to call them into the station. As time went on, radios and pagers and that type of thing.
Right.
But
The evolution of the communication.
Yeah, they leveraged the technology of the day.
How do they get the money for something like that?
All right, that's a fair
know?
question because you're looking at, they're not a tax-based organization.
Yeah.
Palos Heights doesn't even exist like that yet, and so they were basically living on donations, and they had an annual fireman's ball.
Yeah.
Okay, usually every spring, often in May, but Southmore Country Club, which is today Palos Country Club, hosted a few. Glen Eagles hosted
Yeah.
some. Navajo. Country Club.
That's where we were a couple months ago.
Yes, the golf course that doesn't
Yeah.
exist anymore, right?
Yeah.
Navajo, they hosted over the years. So if you can imagine, they had those fireman ball
Yeah.
going from like the early 40s into the 80s.
Like a fundraiser for them to raise money.
Exactly. People would buy a ticket,
Yeah.
they'd get a raffle prize, food, music, dancing. I mean, it was a social
Really,
event.
the people in this community established this, and it was done out of a need, and probably done out of some cooperation with each other, and they probably actually enjoyed the organization.
So it's all about like raising money and stuff. So I'm assuming that are these workers getting paid, and where are these workers coming from?
All right, excellent question. They're volunteers.
Yeah.
Volunteers from the community, and everything was like that at this point. They had a governing board,
Yeah.
that managed the money and managed the volunteers. But basically, it's so and so down the street there, so and so down the street, so and so down the street there,
Yeah.
who respond to a fire call.
And then that leads into my next question. He's over here. He's over here. They don't have cell phones. How do they know that there's a fire and they need their help?
Excellent question. And it's not a good system when you think about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't as densely populated then, but in the 40s, you're looking at, all right, how do we get word out? And so
Yeah.
they built the barn here, and it was all good, and that was a place for people to rally, but how do they get there, right? No
Yeah.
computers, no cell phones. So the siren on top of the realtor company was actually connected to a box on the building that anybody could activate, and that box could be signaled, and it sent out a siren blast.
Yeah.
And so when people in the community heard the siren,
They're like, okay, it's time to go to work.
winter of
Yeah.
1945, irony of irony,
Yeah.
the fire barn for the fire truck, Model A, they had bought like in 1939, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That barn burns down.
Oh,
All right.
at the fire department. Yeah.
Yes, it burns down. So in 1946, they build a cement structure at the current. They're like, we're not messing
Yeah.
with wood anymore. A cement structure, 1946, at the current location.
Dave, I'm not an expert. I'm not an architect, but I'll tell you right now that building was not built in 1946.
I'm going to agree with you. Yeah, I'm not an architect here, but it doesn't look 46. It's definitely
Yeah.
not. That structure has been added on, moved, remodeled.
Yeah.
It's not 46. So it was at least the beginning of
It was
the
the beginning of
new
something great. Yeah.
the new location. You want to go check out
Let's
the new location?
go check it out. All right, Dave, we finally have made it to the correct spot, but it doesn't
we
look
are.
like this is from 1946 at all.
No, it definitely is not, especially this corner. But yet we are looking at the corner directionally where the first firehouse was built in 46. And actually off this corner, the firehouse was shared space with the library.
Another question, Dave. I don't see a library here anymore.
No, it's definitely not a library
Yeah.
anymore. You're right.
A different story for a different time.
Another show,
Another
maybe.
show.
So the library was here for a short period, but obviously,
Yeah.
yes, it didn't become their permanent home. So, fire department here, they have their own building, sharing it, albeit for a little while. And then in 1956, they actually become they begin to be able to collect taxes, tax district. And so in 1961, they build a modern firehouse. And now they're really stepping into, something that would look more familiar to people.
When it starts in 1939, like they incorporate, it sounds something like that,
Sure.
or create a district. But it's a volunteer fire department, right?
Yes, it was all volunteer.
And when did it become? I'm assuming we're not 100% volunteer anymore.
No, so the evolution, as I understand it, it was all volunteer. In 1960, the building that we're in right now, which is the headquarters, was built, and there's some additions that were put on later. But it eventually, went from a couple of buildings that they built basically with the labor of the volunteer firefighters, with some, support of the community. And that went probably through the 60s. And then in the 70s, there started to be a full-time presence here at the firehouse. And with the introduction of paramedics, they went round the clock. Went partially full-time, partially part-time, and now it's an all-career department.
Okay.
So everybody here is, basically this is their job and their career.
Right, their career, and they're trained in it
Yes.
full time. And it is, but you think about, for 30 plus years, it sounds like you're dependent on volunteers.
Yes.
We
basically
have
for
this big firehouse now. Are these firemen being paid now, or is it still like volunteering?
All right, excellent question, because there's
Yeah.
two things that need to happen. You can look at this and
Annex 1980,
1980.
so a little more upgrades along the way, I'm
Yes.
assuming.
Yeah, so you go
Yeah.
from a cement block built in 46. So in 61, they modernize, obviously, the annex,
Yeah.
1980, right around that time, to answer your first question. So yes, in 1979, they have tax revenue now. They
Yeah.
moved from volunteers. So think about it, they've been volunteers from the late 30s all the way to 1979.
Yeah.
Now they've got full-time paid
on
firemen.
this corner. And but to go back even further, there was no fire department here in 1939.
Right.
Right. They had to create that district. How did they exist before that? And I'm assuming, did they have any equipment?
Well, there was other fire districts, that were established, and basically that was how these fire districts came to be. Is they would have a major fire, and then they would meet, and the community would say, "Listen, we need to start our own fire brigade, fire district, whatever at that time." And again, there's a lot of them that sprung up out of this area, which was, somewhat, rural at the time, and has grown tremendously since then.
I know behind me we've got a pump of some kind.
Right.
I'm assuming it's not from 1939, even though it's decorated that way. What is this pump?
It's called a pump can, and it's a fire extinguisher, and you fill it on the top here with just water, and it has a manual pump. It's a brass pump, and basically we bring that into a residence or anywhere.
So you still use something like
We
this?
still carry them, and they're a tradition, but they're also a valuable tool. If we don't see something and we go in and we discover it, we can use that initially. It's a tool for when we first arrive. This display was put together by one of our firefighters. I should say more than one, but it was spearheaded by one of our firefighters, Josh Swick, who wanted to commemorate the department and preserve some of the history.
I say it is a great thing.
It is.
We got several fire helmets down here, right? Chief
Yes.
helmets. Can you talk about those a little bit? I mean, these are definitely. You can tell the historical quality is there.
So the chiefs that were long serving here and transitioned from they were volunteer chiefs, were Camper and Bushy, Chiefs Camper and Bushy. Those helmets were donated to us for display and for preservation, as well as Engineer Valquet's family donated the engineer's helmet. The engineer is the person that operates, used to traditionally operate, be certified to operate fire apparatus, as well as some other patches and paperwork and that type of thing. And then some, a hose that was decorated to commemorate the incorporation or the charter of the fire district. So.
Oh. Well, it's a great display. We'll make sure we thank him for creating it,
Yes.
preserving the history like that. Some really interesting artifacts here telling that story. Chief Daly, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Really good background. The story is incredible, especially when you think about the Palos community before it was Palos Heights in 1939,
Right.
and developing into this firehouse.
Yeah, and really, the community formed this organization, and we still hear from members of the community whose family have served, and they come back to sometimes see the fire station, sometimes see some of the things that we have here, or talk about their family, or sometimes they'll donate things to us, from their family members. But it was a community-based organization, and we like to think it still is.
It is. That's a great tribute to the community and the fire department that people feel that connection.
Yes.
And it is part of a multi-generation history.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for sharing the information, the stories. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome,
Appreciate
Dave.
what you do for Palos Heights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so we get to the modern fire department. Obviously, this building's been renovated and upgraded a few times. 2004,
Yeah.
they built another station on Ridgeland Avenue adjacent
Okay.
to Shepherd High School. And that brings us to Palos now.
This is where we're at now.
Palos Fire Department then and now. We
Yeah.
made it to the now part.
So you've also mentioned Bartlett and the library, Dave. I think we're going to have to dig deeper into those topics another day in another show. But for now, on the fire department, I think we're good.
Yeah,
But
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I think we've covered a good overview. There's a lot.
there's a lot to dig into.
Bartlett and the library,
Yeah.
some good stories there too.
Yeah.
Adam, thank you very
Of
much.
course, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Great trip through
Yeah.
Palos then and now.
Always a pleasure.
I'm Dave Wurzel,
I'm Adam Nilsson.
and you've been watching Palos Stories then and now, and we've been talking about the Palos Heights Fire Department. Thank you for watching.